everyone! In this video we're going to be building a very small farm that is going to be actually a starter house and a limited pack build. I am so excited about this one because I am building here in Ravenwood, so I'm using only Life and Death, Cottage Living and Realm of Magic because I was thinking about what kind of game I would like to play, like what kind of save. And so I was thinking that it would be really nice to have a little farm, and then I was thinking about which world I would want to have that farm in. And I thought that Ravenwood has this beautiful countryside area, so of course that was something that I wanted to try. And I really like playing with witches, so I decided to also use Realm of Magic, mainly just to have a cauldron and also the bassinet, because I was thinking that even if this house is super small, well, it's not a micro home, especially because I do have like a shed with that cauldron that I was mentioning, but it is a tier 2 tiny house, so it is only one room and one bathroom, which I actually did investigate a little bit about farms in Transylvania because this world is inspired by Transylvania, and I discovered that about half of these farmhouses do not have a bathroom. So I don't know if they have an outhouse, but I decided to have a bathroom just because it's a lot easier for gameplay, and I also thought that it would be kind of cute to have it on top of a little hill, and I decided to use this door from Life and Death. It is not a lot more expensive than the ones in Cottage Living, but I also used a window from Life and Death and one from Cottage Living. I think I also used some more from Cottage Living in the back, and I also decided to have the roof tiles from Life and Death, and I think this looks so cute. I'm using stone from Cottage Living though, by the way, and I also discovered that a few of the sheds or barns that you might find in this area are actually sheds that you also find in the world of Cottage Living, so it turns out that these two blend pretty well. When you're using the more like rustic items from Life and Death, they look pretty nice with the Cottage Living ones, so it looks a bit less, like, I don't want to say pristine, but the stuff in Cottage Living is very, it looks like the kind of items that you would see in like a children's illustrated like storybook. And I wanted this to be a little bit more like rough looking, so I even added a few holes on the roof and, you know, that kind of item that looked a bit weathered, I suppose. And I think that I managed to get a very nice result. You can of course tell me what you think about this. Maybe you would have done this differently, but I really enjoy this and I'm very happy with it. I really want to play with this, and I will also be uploading the sims that I made for this save. I made a couple, and they're going to be farmers and also spellcasters. I think they are both spellcasters, and I gave them the items that came with the update, the Romanian inspired items, and they are also limited pack, so if you only have those 3 packs, or if you have a few packs but those 3 are included, I think that you could have a very nice time with these sims and this lot. Of course, I didn't use a lot from Realm of Magic, so you could also play with those without that. Or maybe you could decide to have this shed be like for nectar making if you have horse ranch, or just some other extra space. Or maybe you want to have it house the, I forget what it's called, the woodworking table. I think that this is a pretty versatile space, even if it is only one room. You could also make it larger towards the back, or you could make it longer. So I think that it would be very possible to make this a larger house eventually, and I think it would be nice to start with a small home with some benefits, and even if you make it larger, it would probably still easily be just a tier 3 tiny home, and maybe you could decide to add a second floor and make that into bedrooms. I think that this is a house that has a lot of potential. Of course, you can let me know what you think of that. And also, if you have different suggestions for houses that you would like to see or that you would like to use in your own game, I would love to read about them. So if you have any of those, you can leave them in the comments of any of my videos. I do read all of my comments. And we're decorating the bedroom area. I added a very big fireplace. You could also have a smaller one, and of course you can also decide to have stairs over on that corner if you decide to have it be 2 floors. But I added like a little, like a chest, And I also added a lamp that looks like a little stool with some flowers. That's from Cottage Living and it's so cute and pretty inexpensive. This house is very close to be useful for living off the grid, except for a few of these lights, the ones that I have hanging in the rooms. But I think that you could very easily just change those out to be candles or other different light fixtures. And you could live off the grid, and that would also be very good for the bills. It would be a lot cheaper. And at this point, I didn't know where I wanted to have the dresser, so I ended up changing the bassinet and having it next to the fireplace. So I decided to get rid of one of these rocking chairs, and in this corner I also have the blanket rack that came with the update, a few fire tools and a plant, and at some point I added the cross-stitching box. I think that's the only item that I didn't playtest, and then when I was playing in here I discovered that it didn't actually work. But that's such a small item and it's so easy to just move it to a different location. You could even have it in the kitchen because it's a fully functional kitchen with one extra half counter, so you could have it there instead. You would just have to get rid of the clutter that I added in this corner, but I think that you could even have the cross-stitching box in your Sims inventory. And I was also thinking that this wall, it doesn't look blank because of all of this stone, which is something that I really liked, but it's also a great space to add cross-stitching hoops. And even in the bathroom, you could also add a few of those. I decided to have a picture in here. I thought that was kind of a fun item to have in here. And I added one of the expensive towels. I was very surprised at how many expensive items I was able to have in here, like that toilet, because I just really didn't want to have the cheapest toilet. I just didn't think that it would look nice in this space. Of course, the door to the bathroom is the cheapest door in the whole of the game, I think. Or at least the second cheapest door or something like that. But yeah, I even have a very decent amount of clutter, I thought. So even these like folded shirts make it look like you have enough for a family, kind of. There's no changing table though. But you also don't need changing tables, and they are also from growing together. So since this was limited pack, I just didn't include that. But I think that you could have the house be just a little bit wider and change the dresser and have that instead. But anyway, here in the shed, I am adding these like hanging magical plants, so they look like they're drying. And I almost added this cabinet, but it was a little bit expensive, and so I ended up having instead, it looks like a flower arranging table, but it's from Cottage Living, so it's just a shelf. But I did like to add the hourglass. These are free actually, they are 0 simoleons. So I added one in the cauldron room and one in the kitchen, because I was thinking maybe you would need them to tell how long your potion or food has been cooking. And I don't remember if I actually did add this shelf in here because it was a bit tight. I might have sized it down and included it there anyway. And I also decided to have these scales in the cauldron room instead because of how large they are, and they fit on that shelf that I have been mentioning. And I also decided to have this tiny shelf from Life and Death, so I decided to move the picture onto that and just add some incense, which I thought was very cute. I also have that, like, I don't know if it's a blanket, but it's like a shelf and it has a blanket. So that's also from Life and Death, and it fits pretty nicely with all of this aesthetic of this place. And that's that table that I was mentioning. I wish that you could actually arrange flowers in here. It would be so nice to have more than the one flower arranging table that came with seasons. It's a very nice table. I have no complaints, but it would be nice to have a few different styles of that, or even just a few more swatches. But that's that shed, and then I decided to add the cow, chickens, and gardening plots. I also have the tree stump where you can find the rabbits, and here you can see that I did get rid of that shelf, but I also added this very cute picnic basket, and then we're back outside. I decided to have the cows and the chickens share this fenced-in area, and I ended up moving the gardening plots to the area next to this shed, I actually think I also moved the shed to be near the back of the lot in just one of the corners. I think that it would have been nice to have the shed be on a diagonal, just so that it would look not so perfect, I suppose, because this is such a rustic farm, so I was thinking that it wouldn't be so straight. But yeah, even the gardening plots are kind of straight in this area. I actually didn't end up adding a fence, like a real fence. I just added a debug fence, but I did add a real gate. So it's kind of funny that Sims are just going to walk through the fence. Well, maybe they don't walk through the actual fence, but through some rocks that I added, because this hill was kind of a problem. The terrain manipulation made the fence kind of jump up. So those rocks are kind of sunken into the ground, and I was able to make it look a bit more realistic that way. But here I decided to just have a little truck and add some sacks of dirt, and I think these are turnips. I don't know, I thought this was kind of cute, and of course you could also get rid of these if you were thinking of having this be more of an antique kind of save. I also added this sign that has the bread, because I was thinking that it would be really nice to make a lot of, I think it's called milk bread, but there's also different kinds of bread, and you can make those and sell them, and I was thinking that it would be so nice if that was part of the way that you made money with this. Of course, plants are really great for making money in The Sims, so there's a bunch of area and items for gardening in here. So with this being such a small house and having all of these possibilities, I think that you could make a lot of money to have all of those renovations that I've been mentioning, and I think that it would be really nice. And one of the things that I thought that was really cool was that these blankets actually you can place them in a hill and they look like they are actually draped over the hill. They do get that shape, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get them to work, so I ended up moving them as well. I think that I did that before I added it to the gallery, but if I didn't, you now know that that's an easy thing to fix. There's plenty of space in here, and maybe you didn't even want those blankets anyway, so I just have them here so that you would have that option. But these are those fences that I was mentioning, and you can see that they were kind of jumping up. So I ended up using the ones that are a bit shorter so that I could have like a custom length of fence. And this is that gate that I was mentioning, that is a real gate. I actually changed it out for the bigger gate, also from Cottage Living, just because I thought that it was a bit too small for a space that held a cow. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And then I just added a bunch of flowers and little mushrooms. I thought that was very cute, and it made it look a bit more natural. So I actually added some of the mushrooms on the other side of this fence so that it didn't look like they were just placed there. And this is that rock that I was mentioning. It does look like it's part of the hill, so I really like that. And these are those like fence pieces that I also mentioned. And I think that this looks a lot more realistic, although it does look kind of funny when your Sims walk through that. But of course, having all of those options for making money with the gardening, it would be very easy for you to eventually change this fence to be a real fence. And I also decided to add some of this grass in here just so that if some of those fence pieces were jumping up, you wouldn't really notice that. And it also made it look a lot more lived in. I also added these like bowls of hay. I actually, when I was doing my research, I found this very nice article that I'm going to link down in the description. And that goes into some detail about the hay, and it's actually really important for farms to have hay because that's what the cows are going to be eating during the winter. And I actually also discovered that a lot of the milk that is produced in Romania actually comes from very small farms. They might have 2 or 3 cows, and most of that milk doesn't really leave the farm. They drink it there, or they use it to cook there. And I thought that was very interesting, and it made me think of this farm as being a little bit more realistic, Of course it only has one cow, but it is nice to know that there's some really, really small farms. So if you have a very tiny farm in The Sims, it does make sense for it to be that way. But now I'm just adding some terrain paint and adding some finishing touches. I changed the stairs and I also changed some of the lighting fixtures. I thought about adding these flower boxes, but I think that I don't actually keep them, or maybe just in the bathroom. I thought about adding them to the other window, but I didn't really like that. And then I'm just adding some grass, and that's going to be it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'm going to have it on the gallery, my ideas verano, and I will also have the link in the description so that if it's easier for you to find it that way, you can do that. And now we're just going to be going into the screenshot part of the video. I really like those screenshots and I hope that you will too. Please leave a like under this video and also subscribe if you would like to see more of these builds. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye everyone!